All right, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, peace and blessings, everybody. Welcome to the Doc and the Radical program. And peace and blessings, Doc. You want to come on and introduce yourself?
Yeah, Dr. James Thomas Jones III, Catherine Viola Jones's baby boy. I am a associate professor of African American Studies and History, and I am a willing servant to the people. Glad to be here.
All right, excellent, excellent. So, everybody, just bear with us a little bit tonight. We may be a little bit off as far as getting everything together. We're on a different platform tonight, so I should have did a rehearsal run just to make sure everything was flowing properly, but I didn't. So we're going to work it out as best we can. Topic for tonight program, Doc, excuse me, is that we need to take the mask off the white man. And when I say take the mask off, is because there's an illogical fear of this white man. And I say it's illogical because it doesn't make sense. In reality, we are definitely, as I would say, better. And there's nothing in creation that we should fear except God himself. Other than that, there should be no fear. But when we're dealing with this enemy of ours, it seems as though there's a lot of fear that goes along with him. Afraid to talk, afraid to be yourself, afraid to just open up and say, it is what it is. So we're going to be dealing with that today. That is our topic. Taking the mask off the white man. Earth Angel, welcome to the program. We're glad to have you here.
Most certainly.
Doc, there's a passage in the scripture. Peace and blessings, Brother Forecast. We're glad that you're here. There's a passage in the scripture where it talks about, it says, is this the man that makes the earth to tremble? Is this the man? And looking at that and dealing with that, there's only one man on this earth that makes the earth to tremble. Mm-hmm. And that is this Caucasoid white man. In our task tonight to show him as he really is, to help our people to see a whole lot better and to remove this illogical fear. Because fear is something that we shouldn't have when it comes to them. Peace and blessings, Brother Willie. Doc, when you think about...
Peace, Brother Willie.
When you think about this white man, what are your thoughts? And I know you don't really consider him in anything that you do, you just get it done. But when we're dealing with our people, their thought is always, oh, the white man ain't going to let you do that. The white man ain't going to let you do this. The white man this, the white man that. What's your thoughts about that?
You know, I would like to see where we would be as a people if we were running at even 90% efficiency. I think that if we're running at 90% efficiency, we would be able to really see what's truly achievable in house. But I think that this thing that you're referring to as an illogical fear of the white man is almost like a governor placed upon our people's minds and our work ethic and what have you, our belief system, where we're only going to be able to go so fast, so far, because you have that fear. You have that consideration, be it logical or illogical, of what they're going to allow you to do and what they're not going to allow you to do. So, going back to something that it's probably my most familiar refrain, and it is quite simply that the greatest disease afflicting Black America is a mental disease. It's in our minds that keeps us from really issuing a challenge. And if you really look at our society, and I'm talking about Black America, there are many different things that we consciously do not do in white America that we feel so free to do within Black America. If you think about a robber, a burglar, so to speak, and you consider if the goal is to get some goods, get some materials, to sell, to enjoy, what have you, it seems to me that you would ground zero of that would be in a affluent white community because that's where the goods are. But you don't see us necessarily plying our trade there because it's almost as, and this is a crude analogy, it's almost like one of those electric fences that people use for their dogs. There isn't a fence there, but that dog somehow knows to only go so far. I think that that's part of the fear that we have as a people. That even though there isn't anything tangible telling you don't do this, don't issue the challenge and what have you, you still don't issue the challenge because there is a ingrained socialized fear that you have in your mind and your spirit that quite simply precludes you from issuing, in this case, what we're talking about, a significant challenge to white society. And that is, according to the Bible that I read, a sin.
Mhm. Exactly, exactly. And do you think that if more of our people understood that that is a sin, that it would change their thinking when it comes to them?
No, I think that there's a lengthy process that they need to go through to decompress and to unlearn what they've learned. Because let's be very clear about this. You enter into this world not knowing how to do anything. Cry, poop, pee. You don't even know how to walk. You don't know how to speak. So everything, this toolkit that we all walk around with, and some of our toolkits are fuller than other people's toolkits, it was learned. And so I think that even telling them that is a sin wouldn't work because quite simply they're still paralyzed by what's been taught to them or what's possible and what's impossible.
Mm, mm, mm. That's so. I said this before, and a person really got upset with me for saying. I said the white man made good niggas out of us. He made such good niggas out of us that most of you are still niggas to this very day.
Mhm. You know that
You're,
there's
you're,
there's a James Baldwin quote
mhm.
that says that very thing, that the white man is the one that created niggas. And he had to create niggas to serve, you know, at his feet. So yeah,
Mhm.
Baldwin's very clear on that as well.
Now, Doc, we're going to get into there's a few laws in California that has been changed. Whereas, okay, before we get there, because I think we got to take it step by step. So when the culture of a people defines the people, right?
I would say so. I would add to that a people can be no healthier or no stronger than their stories. So
Mhm.
you look at the stories we create and the stories that we consume. Um, yeah. So I would
Okay.
agree with that.
Okay. So when we look at this enemy and their culture, how would you sum that up? How would you sum up their culture?
In many ways, I look at it as a very efficient culture that operates out of the old Al Davis, Oakland Raiders former owner. Al Davis had this great saying that he would tell to his team, and it was quite simply, "If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying."
Mm,
It is a results oriented culture and viewpoint. And you can say whatever you want to about the means and the lengths that people will go to win. At the end of the day, they won. And you can be on the side with your moralism, your goodwill, that well, we tried to do it the right way. Well, you still lost, and you're still being exploited. And that's a there's something to be said for that. That maybe the goal should be to win by any means necessary, and go talk to your God for forgiveness afterwards.
mm, definitely, definitely. They now when you look back at their culture, no matter whether in Rome, in Greece, even one of their gods or their top god, Zeus, um, this idea of men having sex with men. Um, Now, back in the day, they would refer to the white man as the man, meaning he's the definite article of what a man should be like.
Okay.
You go downstairs, you go downtown to see the man today. Yeah, I'm going to go see the man today, right?
Hmm.
Um, Now that image by
Ironically, that's the title of a Baldwin book, "Going to See the Man," I believe. Yeah.
oh wow,
Hmm.
wow. Now that as being the backdrop, being the image
Hmm.
for all people to uh, um, correlate, because even I forget the name of the movie, but and yes, it's just a movie, but in reality, some of our people had this mindset, and the black man was married to the black woman, but she was screwing the white man who was her boss,
The family that
Wainwright or
prays.
Forthright or something like
The
that.
the family that prays.
Yes, yes. And so she was saying to the black man, yeah, that's not your son, because you ain't no Cartwright or something like that. He's the man and you not like him.
Hmm.
So here you have, when you have that image and that idea of the white man as the man, that is the definition
Hmm.
of manhood. And everybody manhood is measured against him.
Hmm.
That already sets up self-destruction in the black household, and even, I would say in the black world. What's your thoughts on that? Should he be the measure of what manhood looks like? And if he should be, then how could a black man stand a chance, or a Chinese man, or an Indian man?
I think that you're hitting something that is super important when we begin to talk about this idea of manhood and manhood dynamics and manhood constructs. The the template for being a man and manhood on the North American continent. I'm talking about growing out of the British colonies. I'm talking about Jamestown. I'm talking about Virginia, all of those, the colonies that were set up. That was the power and the behavior that is occurring within white America serves in many ways as the template for what black manhood will be measured by. And I would argue that that holds to this very day. That the white man, and I'm talking about powerful, well resourced, not necessarily wealthy white men, have been for black men and especially black women the standard bearer for what a man is, what a man ought to be, and what he ought to do. And when you talk to black women, and I don't care if you're talking to one with a PhD from Harvard all the way through, just use a name of Bunquisha that has no degree, they invariably are articulating, maybe in drastically different ways, that the two most primary qualifiers to being considered a man is the ability to provide and to protect. If that is in and of itself all that a man is, black men are doomed. The majority of black men are doomed because you can't divorce history from these types of constructs. You can't divorce daily reality. So if you have black women who are saying, well, he needs to provide and he needs to protect, well, there are very few black men whose energy level, work ethic, or dedication is associated in any way with his ability to acquire gainful employment. And I'm sure you remember the old song, ain't nothing going on but the rent. You gotta have a job if you want to be with me. Well, in many ways, we integrated ourselves out of power when these moderate civil rights leaders, Abernathy, King, Shuttlesworth, when they came forth and they were largely devoid of a economic plan to go with this fight for legal rights, for legal equality. So integration occurs and you lose your economic power base. Consider for a moment the the um, the bringing together of the NBA and the ABA. Those two leagues with teams that were owned by white men, they merged. Now consider what happened between Major League Baseball and the Negro Leagues. There was no merging. Major League Baseball came and took who they wanted, and that in many ways led to the demise of the Negro Leagues. And to this day, you don't have any black ownership of a Major League Baseball team. So the providing thing, especially when you're dealing with people who have never had these phenomenal material resources. Kanye West said it best, because they made us hate ourselves and love our wealth. That's why Shorty's holler, where the ball is at. Far too often, black folk are laying aside their morality to grasp for dollars that are by and large outside of their grasp. And that is in many ways one of the, if not the core problem between black men and black women to this day. That black women refuse to accept the idea that black men are not in charge of their destiny. And if he's not in charge of his destiny, how can he lead our family?
Definitely, definitely. Last week we talked, and I was telling you about the group that I was at, and they were wondering, oh, where did this homosexuality come from? And I told them that it came from white folks. It is part of them. It is what they come with. It was no thing for them to behave in that manner. And I want to go over this article that was written on that, and it talks about that. Let me share screen. I want to get your thoughts on it. Briefly, it says many people consider homosexuality to be a modern day phenomenon. This could not be further from the truth. Homosexuality has been documented in Western society as far back as the ancient Greeks. Virtually every civilization since has had some record of the presence of homosexuality, from ancient Greece to Rome to Victoria, England, right up to the present day. Because of the brevity required for this article, the focus will be on male homosexuality from classical Greece to the late medieval period. Homosexuality, Plato wrote, is regarded as shameful by barbarians and by those who live under desperate governments, just as a philosophy is regarded as shameful by them because it apparently not in the interest of such rulers to have great ideas endangered in their subjects, or powerful friendships, or passionate love, all of which homosexuality particular apt to produce. The ancient Greeks regarded homosexuality as a normal part of life, but only within certain parameters. The relationship was supposed to be between a beardless youth and an older male. The elder was supposed to be the active partner. It was shameful for him to be the passive partner. The youth should not accept money from the man, nor was he supposed to enjoy the act of penetration. Once the youth reached adulthood and recognition as a citizen, the relationship was supposed to lose its sexual side. Even the greatest of the gods, Zeus, is portrayed as pursuing homosexual as well as heterosexual romances. Now, Zeus is supposed to be their top god, but yet Zeus pursued homosexual relationships, whereas, as they talked about, that the older man should be the dominant partner, should be the one doing the sticking, and the youth should be the one doing the receiving. Now, we also know that in America, there's this group called NAMLA, man-boy love relationship type thing. How can this be accepted as a normal practice, as something that is a-okay to do? And now in the state of California, where I'm going to show you this, for a man to engage in sexual relations with a boy, as long as it's not quote unquote forced, he can be 24, the boy can be 14. It is not illegal. It is no longer criminality. How is this seen as acceptable? What kind of mind sees this as acceptable behavior, Doc?
Scripture talks about a reprobate mind and people being turned over to that mind where they don't know, up from down. and down from up. That's the only explanation I would have for that. But one of the things that, as you were talking, that really makes it astounding and astonishing for me is that Californians are, if this is a law, their representatives are more welcoming of such hedonism than they are willing to give reparations to Black folk.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
Exactly. Exactly. I when I was preparing for the program and I was reading this law. In fact, let me see. Make sure this is the. Okay, do you see the new screen that's up?
No.
No? Okay. Because I want to read this law. Okay, let me do this.
Please do.
Let me stop sharing and go back and do the share again. Okay. So when we come back. There we go. Okay. Okay, now do you see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here it is. California's Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom just signed Bill 145, which lowers the penalties for adults who have same-sex minors. So let's go. Okay, here we go. This bill states non-forcible sodomy, oral copulation, sexual penetration with a minor do not require mandatory sex offender registration unless there is a 10-year gap between the minor and the other person. However, a court may still require registration if it deems appropriate. These offenses, when committed without force, where the minor was a willing participant under the age of 14, are sometimes referred to as Hosher offenses, People versus Hosher, held that requiring mandatory sex offender registration for such an offense of oral copulation was unconstitutional if the state did not require registration for a person convicted of non-forcible sexual intercourse with a minor because it made an illegal distinction based on the sex act itself. Non-forcible sodomy or oral copulation and sexual penetration with a minor is the first legal problem with this bill, as it is against the law to have sex with a minor, gay or straight. The legal age of consent in California is 18 years of age. The age of consent that refers to the age at which a person can legally consent to any sexual intercourse. If there is a real inequity in the laws governing sex with minors, this bill is only undermining any sincere attempt to address that. So up here, where Senator Melissa Mendez says, "What a shock! Newsom signed SB 145, a bill that allows a 24-year-old to have sex with a 14-year-old and escape felony conviction and requirement to be registered as a sex offender. Absolutely disgusting." So let me correct myself from earlier because I left out that there has to be a 10-year gap. So if it's more than a 10-year gap, then yeah, you can go to jail. But if it's less than a 10-year gap, you don't have to go to jail. You can get away with it according to SB 124, SB 145, that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California,
California.
has signed into law. Now, when you stop and think about what this actually means, that it's now legal for a 24-year-old to have sex with a 14-year-old as long as it's not forced. So when you have these teachers in school in California who have sex with their students, there's no more crime. No more crime. They have it where, well, before I get into the next part, let me stop right here. Doc, what's your thoughts on SB 145?
Just astounded, you know, and there is no explanation for me that would be good enough for me to ever support it, or support anything that perverse, or have respect for individuals who would support that. You know, we've gotten to a point where the world, you know, there's this great old movie that whose title I think sums up exactly what I'm feeling right now, and it is quite simply, "The gods must be crazy."
And there's this new, or I don't know if I should say new, because it's been happening for some time now, where but before I go to there, because I want to address Earth Angel comment. Doc Earth Angel says black man can lead his family if he let his woman help him, working together with resources they have. Integrity can still be intact to the degree we aren't harming each other. B1. And you know, I definitely agree with that. What's your thoughts on that, Doc?
I mean, you know, the sentiment behind the comment is spot on, but there's a lot just in that little, those two sentences, that has to go correct for it to be possible. And the portion of it that gets me is the if he lets his woman help him. I think that we may be at a point now with a over the majority of our sisters where they're not willing to help at all. That the vast majority of them believe that marriage in and of itself is a free ticket to avoid work, to avoid building with someone, to avoid aiding within, you know, aiding a man within the home and providing for the home. You know, you constantly hear sisters talking about, I don't do 50-50. I don't, you know, that's not, you know, and that's an issue. That's a problem because we behave often as if we have no memory of our mother and father working together, of our grandparents working together. Our way within a white supremacist white society has always been it has taken two. That's in many ways why you had movies like The Help, where you have black women going to do day work because that check was needed to supplement and stabilize the black household. The history of black women in working is so markedly different from that of elite and privileged white women that it's almost laughable to compare the two as being on the same path. So we have a problem within our community, and that is quite simply that so many of our women and some of our men are addicted to consumerism. They've allowed things to take the place of dignity and respect. They are out of order on both sides of the aisle often. And so that would be my thing. I think that we know the formula. We know the formula of racial uplift. In one generation, we could solve this. However, getting our people to cooperate and to follow the game plan and the strategy is something totally different. I don't think that there are many black men who would disagree with their woman helping them to stabilize the family economically. But there's a host of women who quite simply are going to say, well, if you can't provide everything that I need, what good are you?
Mhm.
And as I said earlier, they want a provider and a protector. And in today's society, when they talk about a provider, they want somebody with Jeff Bezos' money, someone with Bill Gates' money. And, we refer to this as conditional femininity, that if a man makes enough, then I will act correct. But if he don't, he just old dusty, raggedy Negro that needs to get the fuck out my face. And I
Mm.
yield, brother.
Yes, sir. So there's a mindset that has to change on both sides of that issue. The black woman's mindset and the black man's mindset definitely have to be worked on in order for us to produce the proper family life,
Most
the
certainly,
proper peace.
one of the blessings, I'll call it a blessing, of working where I work at is that it's like any other university. We have these majors that the university is known for. And principally, there are two that we are known for, and they are engineering and nursing.
Mm.
And every once in a while, I get into these conversations with my female students because they believe that I hate black women. And nothing could be further from the truth. I just don't like black women all the time. I don't hate them, but there's some foolishness that goes on that they don't want to be called on. However, my nursing students, and they know this very well, if you ask them, they'll tell you. Can you imagine being 22 years old and making over 100 grand?
Mm.
If not 120, 130, 140, they can kind of, especially when you're talking about the global pandemic, they could have worked as much as they wanted to. I asked them this question: are you a Christian? And they will invariably, many of them, yes. Who's the head of household? The man. Okay. Well, now, when you consider that because they want a man who is a man who is in their age bracket, and I understand that. But black men and black graduates in general who are coming out who are not in nursing, they're lucky if they're making 50,000. So here you got a sister who's making 120, 130,000, getting coupled up with a brother that's making 50,000. And now these are Christians. And I will look them in the face and I say, does he get final say if you make 70,000 more than he does? Oh, I don't know if he's gonna get final say now. I'm gonna have some input in it, and there we go, right there. That there is a element of needing to change your mind of conditional femininity, because in every way, materialistic women, capitalist women, consumerist women, they will sell their bodies, their loyalty, and their femininity to somebody that can buy them designer purses every day of the week. And that's not love. That's not building. But that's where we are.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. And so when we're dealing with the total just breakdown of the family,
Mhm.
when you're introducing into this lifestyle of this LGBTQ foolishness, because San Francisco passed another law, or working on passing this law, where
Mhm.
you can lose your children if
Mhm.
you don't affirm. If the child want to say, well, I'm a girl today and you were born a boy, but if you as dad say, no, you still a boy, you can lose your parental rights.
Mhm.
Um, And so this, what we call the gay agenda, um, is taking even more and making the homestead, the home front more weakened, more division.
Hmm.
And so I'm gonna share screen and go to this because this is just piling up more and more of the deterioration of the family. So here we are for Bill 957. And this bill was introduced by a Black woman, unfortunately, Assemblywoman Lori Wilson, a Democrat. A parent could lose custody for not affirming or agreeing to a child's claim about their gender identity. The bill, co authored by Senator Scott Weimer, Democrat of San Francisco, would require judges adjudicating such disputes over transgender identifying children to favor the parent who affirms the child's preferred identity. Apparently, Senator Weimer is not satisfied eroding parental rights with this bill to allow children as young as 12 to take the COVID vaccine without parental consent, or his bill relaxing penalties for having non forcible sodomy, oral copulation, and sexual penetration with a minor, or his bill to remove the felony penalty for knowingly exposing another person to HIV. Following the viral footage showing children attending a drag show at Mr. a gay bar in Texas in 2020. Senator Weimer proposed on Twitter, offering Drag Queen 101 as part of K-12 curriculum. Attending a drag queen story time will satisfy the requirements, he said. It's really not funny when you put all of this damaging legislation together and see that Senator Weimer does not believe much in parenting. And so we're going to go to this Black woman who's the author of this bill and listen to what she said.
I can't hear the sound.
Okay, let me go back because I must have missed a button or something. Okay, let me go back.
So this particular bill adds the very important factor that
Can you hear
affirming
it
a
now, Doc?
child's gender
Yes, sir.
identity is in their best interest.
Barely. If you could turn it up a little.
It's about why does it actually say that in an affirmative way? And it really is because if you have a 7-year-old who's talking about having a potential to say, I being able to articulate that they believe that they are not the same gender as they are biologically, then it should be affirmed. And through care, it should be determined. And that's what we did with our own child. And that would give the ability for a parent who wasn't sure to affirm and get their child the care that they need to make that, so they can begin to articulate that determination. But by saying and rejecting it in wholesale, then you're essentially rejecting your child. And that is not in the best interest of a child. We should be affirming our children in every possible way. and getting them whatever appropriate care they need, whether it's based on their gender, whether it's based on how their studies are in school. It doesn't matter. Our children should be affirmed. And this is saying that you have to include gender affirmation as a part of that.
So, as she was saying, you gotta affirm if your child, if your 7-year-old is saying, "Daddy, I'm a girl today," and you and your girlfriend or wife or whatever is going up and you're fighting for custody. But if you don't affirm what the child affirms, you automatically lose. Because it's not in what she's saying, it's not in the best interest of the child for you to say that, no, you're not a girl, you're actually a boy. And it's like these scales have been pushed over and there's been no resistance. This stuff is just a freight train just running on through. And this goes on, and everybody, eventually it'll find its way in everybody's household. What's your thoughts on this, Doc? Have they overstepped?
Well, certainly. You know, there is this is a great story, and I want to attribute it to Brett Favre, but I'm not certain as to if it was Brett Favre, but it was an NFL quarterback who had a teammate who befriended him. And he comes up to him and he says quite simply, you know, I just had a child. Okay. Can you give me some advice in regards to how do I raise my child? And the advice that was given was quite simply, you got to look at your child as if they are a tape recorder, because they're going to record everything that you say and they're going to see everything that you do. Now you have to decide, whose voice do you want on that tape? Do you want your voice or do you want strangers' voices on that tape? What's being called for now is allowing outsiders to come in and to dictate to you what you can do and what you can say with your child. I disagree with that 101 millionth percent. Okay, that is not the way forward. It's not, you know, it's just not. It's not the way forward for our people. And I always bounce things that are happening to Black folk off of this very hypothetical question. And that hypothetical question is this one. Would you say that to a Jew?
Mm.
And the truth of the matter is no, you wouldn't. And the Jewish community is smart enough, organized enough to educate their own children in their own schools. You see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
And you still won't educate your own. You still allow an outside world to dictate to you what your child should and should not learn and should not be. You know, I have to chuckle at this idea. I was reading a story a couple of days ago about a 3-year-old who was guiding his parents, a 3-year-old. He ain't been here 36 months. And he's taking the lead in guiding his parents through his process of getting gender reassignment surgery. He's 3.
Wow.
And they're allowing this because they want him to be able to express himself, to be who he was born to be. And it made me laugh. And I laughed even more when I reflected upon why I was actually laughing. I wasn't 3. I was more probably about 9 or 10 years old. And I woke up one day after seeing Star Wars. And I remember marching into the kitchen. My mother and father were in there interacting with each other. We were getting ready to have breakfast. And I announced to my father and my mother something that was absolutely positively startling. And it was that I wanted to be an Ewok. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an Ewok. And now I used to say, well, I'm glad I was born in the time that I was born in. No, forget that. I wish I was born now. Because if I was born now, I could be a fucking Ewok. I could go into school as an Ewok. Not having to learn anything, not having to conform, not having to learn any rules because I'm an Ewok. And whatever planet that Ewoks are from, one day I'll probably end up there. This is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It truly is. And when you have a understanding of parental responsibility, and I think that one of our primary problems as a people is a misunderstanding of what parental responsibility really is. Your job is actually to teach this child how to maneuver and make it successfully through adulthood. This ain't the way. It just ain't.
Definitely. Maya says people have to take their children out of public schools that push this agenda and monitor or prohibit television and social media in and outside the home. And how practical is that, Doc? Is that even because I believe the person is correct, but is that even possible?
Yes, you raise your children. I have a group of cousins who, ironically, were raised in a Nation of Islam home. They didn't have those outside influences on them.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't, and it was a treat for my cousins Malika, Jamila, Rashida, Kareem. I was their conduit to Columbus, Ohio. I was like the way station. I remember they would come down on a Friday, getting ready to go to the masjid on Saturday and Sunday. This was their outing, and I remember they didn't eat McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I had an uncle, my Uncle Richard. May he rest in peace. He would deliberately take them. There was 7 or 8 of them. He would deliberately take them to McDonald's, and they were satisfied with just getting the bun, pickles, and that little red and yellow dye that was supposed to be ketchup and mustard. Okay? And I remember my uncle. I was undone when I saw him tell the lady all of those patties that didn't get put on those 7, 8 hamburgers that he ordered, put them all on one, put them on mine. And he would sit there and try and eat. It was the most ridiculous thing that I'd ever seen. Okay. So you're dealing with an opportunity because this is a phenomenal moment in human history. If we're being honest about it, we're at a point where you could pick up that device, that phone, and you could learn anything that has ever happened in the world. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a blessing and a curse as well. People can control what their children consume. Black folk have done it for eons. It's just now we're allowing others to educate our children, to take care of our children. As Brett Favre talked about, we're allowing them to speak into that tape recorder of who our children are. There are simply some things that we as a family, as a community, as a race should not be. And we can regulate that. And to say that we can't regulate it is pure laziness and foolishness.
Definitely. Peace and blessings, Miss Life Lessons number 3. Glad that you were able to make it. Definitely glad to have you here with us today. You know, Doc Franz Fanon, in his book, Black Skin, White Mask.
In White Mask, know it well.
Yeah. In there, he said, let me find it really quick. The Negro enslaved by his inferiority, the white man enslaved by his superiority, alike behave in accordance with their neurotic orientation. So, dealing with this orientation of mind, because it is this orientation of mind that stops us from acting in the proper manner, stops us from doing things that we should do. The brother that you gave the example that's in the Nation of Islam has received an orientation of mind, has bought into it, and raised his family in that same orientation. This orientation of mind that our people in general are in is not that type of mindset. I don't know what you would call this type of mindset. I call it, you know, the loving the white man, loving the cracker mindset, because it doesn't allow them to be their true selves. It keeps them off guard when they need to be on guard. And so this mindset, in order to replace it, in order to have an operation on the mind of Black people, is not going to be done in no public schools. It's not going to be done from no church pulpit, because all of these things, these entities, these institutions continue to reinforce the idea that's already planted in their mind of Black inferiority. It already enforces that. So to be able to replace that mind, and I know you said we have to have institution versus institution. They got an institution, we got to have one that matches, that's able to combat that. Now, we're not at that level yet. So how do we?
See, I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I believe that we are at that level. We are at that level. You look at the number of churches we have. You look at the independent schools that we have. Hell, look at how desperate our people are to do something. We don't even have to work on that mindset. You know, they've given probably millions of dollars to Umar Johnson in his fictive school. Okay, so the desire is there, the recognition is there, but what we actually have and what we have to combat against is this idea of having flawed, faulty leadership that is not courageous. I'm not even sure which one I value more at the present moment in leadership, wisdom or courage, because we need some brothers who are willing to step out there and to say it and to get out there and have our people doing it. So we have the institutions. Our institutions are just not run well. Our institutions, we're not in agreement as far as Black folk in general. And this is one of the most difficult things to be able to moderate and to control, We don't agree on the ultimate destination. If we agreed on the ultimate destination, I wouldn't give a damn how you got there. If you got there on the conservative train, on the progressive jet, I wouldn't care, because we all know that we're going to Dallas and we're going to meet at in Dallas. But the way we are looking at now, some of us going to Switzerland, some of us going to Norway, some of us going to Dallas, but other ones are going to, to Arizona, to wherever. There is no consensual agreement amongst leadership. Number one, to love each other, and number two, that the ultimate goal is the liberation and salvation of the Black nation. We need leaders who look at leadership in the way that Huey P. Newton of Black Panther Party for Self-Defense fame looked at it. Huey said that the revolutionary is a doomed man. He'll either die on the battlefield trying to achieve the revolution, or he'll succeed and no longer be needed by his people because they're now free. Revolutionary suicide. That's what we need. We have the institutions. We don't need to go about recreating another urban league. We need to direct the urban league to do something correct for Black folk. We don't need to worry about another NAACP. You already got one. What's the use of these tools? These, as Thurgood Marshall and Charles Hamilton Houston would refer to them as levers for social justice, if they ain't positioning and lifting nothing. That's what we need to deal with. We need to deal with the idea of cowardly old leadership who hold on to those positions, like Joe Biden is holding on to the presidency. Come on, you know you too old. Some of our leaders, I guarantee you, Jesse Jackson did not know where he was at half the time over the last 5 years of his quote unquote leadership. You know, John Lewis didn't know where he was. But they had these fiefdoms that bolstered them to be kings of Black America. And whenever I see them and I see them talking, I was just on a program with the brother Ben Jealous. Okay. I'm sitting there thinking, the Black Panther line, this is your king? This right here, this is your king. Because if that's your king, you're going nowhere. Period.
Exactly. And I think that because we've suffered for years of poor leadership, the line has to be drawn. And it has to be known that we're not going to continue to have leaders appointed to us. I think it was Malcolm X who said, we're the only people that have comedians as our leaders. We're the only people that have entertainment as our leaders. We're the only people that have sports figures as our leaders. And, that's a problem. That's a problem.
No, but see, the thing is that we're not the only ones. Look at who your last president was. There's a segment of white America that is as ignorant and led astray, run amok as a segment of Black America. And they get behind these leaders, quote unquote, so-called leaders, who are offering them nothing but entertainment, a chance to be near fame. And they cheer for them like they're cheering for sports teams. When you look at the deplorable record of these Black folk that we send to the House of Representatives, our congressmen and our few senators, come on. If it was a sports game, they would be 0 for 893. because they brought nothing to our people, nothing whatsoever, and never, and I would argue, never really had a reasonable expectation of achieving anything. They're just going about their day, collecting a check, participating in a mass game of mental masturbation. It feels good when they do it. They look good doing it. But from the beginning to the very end, they never intended to produce anything but wasted water.
And you know, Doc, Miss Life Lesson says that the NAACP is not fit for purpose. We should be reevaluating
They ain't been fit since the boys left.
and reevaluating these organizations. And you know how the NAACP do it. They put out a travel alert. Don't go to this state, da, 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 da. We ought to put out an organizational alert. Don't join this organization. Pull back your, because they're not fit. What's your thoughts on that?
But see, the thing is that, and let's be very honest about this. The NAACP is not yours. The Urban League is not yours. These are entities that are wholly reliant, well, predominantly reliant. I won't even say wholly, but predominantly reliant upon grants, white donor dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where their loyalty lies. Their loyalty does not lie to working towards the liberation and salvation of the Black nation. No, they would be frightened to be seen on a stage next to Minister Farrakhan.
Most definitely.
They would be frightened.
Mm-hmm.
The only, one of the brothers, and it was the most public declaration that I am a Black man, an independent Black man. And we ain't heard from this brother in a mighty long time, was Arsenio Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And you see what they did to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a level of trouble that, as a Black person, that you can get yourself into, that there isn't a Black person who possesses the power and is willing to help you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I want to look at Earth Angel's comment. As I tried to hold back, sometimes we need not be afraid to hold the line and die for what we believe. And I definitely agree with that wholeheartedly. We showed a clip maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, even when Dr. Collett was saying, damn, just hold the line, just hold the line. And that seems so hard to do for some. What would be your, I guess, motivating reasoning for them to just hold the line?
I'm reminded in hearing that, I'm reminded of, and like Malcolm said it very well, better than I could say it. He said the white man messed up when he allowed me to see his books, his history books, his history.
Mm-hmm.
He messed up because I learned from it. And one of the things that I learned, by watching The Gladiator, my man Maximus, okay, he talks to his men before they're getting ready to go into battle. Mm-hmm. with these barbarians, and he tells them a couple of things. He says, strength and honor, and all of them respond, strength and honor. And then he says, listen, stay with me, hold the line. Mm-hmm. He said, if you should find yourself riding your horse in a sunny pasture with the sun on your face, do not be afraid. You are in Elysium and you are already dead. That's the type of commitment that if you want to be free, you need to do this. You know, I was recently lecturing about John Brown. John Brown got tired of the talk, and he said, "You want them to be free? Let me show you how to make them free. You need somebody who can be a Peter and make a move."
Mm-hmm.
And these fat cats sitting up in here and these on these thrones um, within these civil rights organizations, they quite simply are they ain't risking nothing. Okay,
Exactly.
not at all, because they're at work. That is their business, to keep this thing in many ways. You don't want to solve anything. You don't want to be what Huey P. Newton was talking about when he talked about revolutionary suicides. You don't want that. You want to live to see another paycheck.
Mm. And that's real. That is real right there. Um, I want to go because we see the enemy with this mask making you believe that he's not uh, the devil, that he's not our enemy, that he's just a friendly being who, is a good person to have around, and that we should not be on guard when dealing with him.
Yeah, but we also need to acknowledge that we got some of us's who are looking to cut our throats to become the favorite pet, to get the crumbs off the table
Oh, most
from
definitely.
those who historically have opposed us.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I want us to show, there's going to be two videos that I want us to talk about, because here we have our people not realizing who that they're really dealing with. And so I want to share screen. Can you hear that?
No, sir.
Let's see. What am I doing wrong?
Latest updates on the shooting death of a Noonan native, a husband and father, Quaylen Campbell, killed in Colorado. Police there are now telling the family that detectives are investigating why no officers showed up in time to help Campbell, even after his wife called 911. Campbell's family in tears, telling our John Sherry they can only wonder what if.
One moment he is texting his aunt in Atlanta, happy birthday.
Love you.
Then suddenly, Quaylen Campbell, who is in his work vehicle on this busy stretch of road in Colorado Springs, where he and his wife and two daughters live now, is texting his wife to call 911. That's Quaylen's arm in the foreground, and sitting next to him in the front passenger seat, a gunman he does not know who had just jumped into the car. Quaylen texting his wife for help, trying not to let the gunman see that he's texting. Talia Campbell immediately calls 911 and starts to drive to get to Quaylen. It takes her more than 45 minutes to get to him. And when she arrives, she sees that no police had ever shown up. She's the one who discovers Quaylen's body inside the vehicle, shot to death. Police say the gunman, a stranger, had killed Quaylen and then killed himself.
It's hard.
Quaylen's cousin in Fairburn, Kendra Farmer.
And I feel like if they would have made it, he probably would have survived.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Quaylen's aunts, Shedra Graham and Bernice Graham.
But to think somebody could have helped him and nobody showed up, nobody deserves that.
Family attorney Harry Daniels from Atlanta says police have told him that it was a random crime. The gunman, a transient, Daniels says, with an extensive criminal record. And now Daniels says police are investigating themselves about why it took officers so long to respond to that 911 call. Quaylen's family holding on to him.
Quaylen was a gentle giant.
Aching for answers as much as they ache in their hearts for him.
He was the best father ever.
In Fairburn, John Sherrick, 11 Alive News.
Now here you are, Doc, where this brother was driving around. Hold on one second. That our brother was driving in Colorado, and a white man jumps in his truck in the passenger side. He sends his wife a text message, call 911, send help, send her the location where he is. She calls the police. Police does nothing. And like Maya said, our people don't even know we're at war. So when the enemy jumps in your vehicle and you're there, and death has entered your vehicle. So he done killed you and then killed himself. Police don't even show up. The wife gets to the scene of their crime before the police do. Not even realizing who this enemy really is. There is another a black woman and her child. I think the child was like 13 or 14. In Walmart, shopping, doing their thing. White man walks up to the child, shoots the child in the chest. Luckily, the child is still living in the hospital fighting, for her life. It was a boy down there in Maryland. White man walks up to him and says something about the place where the Vikings call heaven. Said something to him about that. The black boy didn't understand what he was saying, and he got his throat slashed. Allowing these enemies in our close personal space, not being aware of what you're really dealing with, not understanding the devil themselves, not understanding Satan themselves. How do you wake up our people to let them understand the time and what must be done, that you looking at this enemy like that's your best friend? When that enemy comes to kill you, you're not even on guard to know what's going on. We can go back to Dylan Roof, walked into the church.
Yeah.
Not understanding the real enemy is right there ready to send you to the next place.
I mean, brother, it is, it's late in the game. It's as if we're playing the Denver Nuggets, or better yet, the Golden State Warriors, Portland Trailblazers, and Steph Curry and Dame Lillard then dropped 70. And it's 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and we down by 1. It's late in the game for you to recognize what's been going on. You know what they're going to do. They're going to Steph. They're going to Dame. I was listening to, I want to say it was Ali. I'm pretty sure it was Ali, giving an interview, and they were asking him, he was obviously still involved with the Nation of Islam, and they were asking him about the blanket statement that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad made, said white people are the devil. And Ali said, okay, well, let's look at it this way. He said, if you were approaching a house, and in front of that house were 5,000 snakes, but only 1,000 of them were not venomous, would you feel comfortable walking through there? And the guy says, certainly no. He says, that's our existence. We don't have the luxury of waiting for an attack. We can't start you off at 100% comfort and confidence. We got to start you off at 0. And some of y'all act so poorly, you never, black and white, you never get off of 0.
Mhm.
I can't even begin to tell you. I can't imagine. I can't even construct it in my mind of what would have to be said or would have to occur for me to lower my guard.
Mhm.
I'm not trusting in that way. And that's not going to change
Exactly.
because I've seen too much. I know too much. And one of the, I'm teaching a class right now that's dealing with early U.S. history from 1492 to 1876. My students are amazed at the same time that I'm amazed at how little they know. And a part of it for me is quite simply because they haven't been taught, because they don't know about the Stonewall Rebellion. They don't know about Nanny and Gabriel Prosser. They don't know about Denmark. They don't know about John Brown. They just don't know.
Mhm.
They, until they do know, they're like sheep waiting to be slaughtered
Mhm.
because they don't know enough to recognize who the enemy is and where they're seeing exceptionalism. Well, it was just one person out of millions who did that. You're not looking at the pervasive, larger record. And I'm not just talking about a daunting record here in the United States. Go and look up the Jewish Holocaust. Look up the name Mengele. Okay, even the name sounds imposing.
Mhm.
Okay, we don't have. I don't have the luxury of being able to have me or my child or my family walk through a minefield, hoping that a mine doesn't go off. No, the message is there are mines there. Do not go over there. One of my constant refrains to my son is, "Don't let nobody play you out of your position."
Mm. Mm. And that's excellent. That is excellent. Miss Life Lessons, I want to go back to her comment because Franz Fanon talked about this in the book. And he says that sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted.
Mhm.
It will create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance.
Dissonance. Mhm.
And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit with their core beliefs.
Mhm.
And that is exactly what we have. Like I told you, when I told that group that all of that comes from white people, and they bust out laughing, thought I was joking, they don't want to accept
Mhm.
that these people are real evil people, even in the face of the history that they know. They don't want to accept it. They don't want to change. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. And it is so anti-God.
Yeah, well, the thing is that once again, it goes to the mind for me. And you can't convince me that a huge portion of our people are not suffering from Stockholm syndrome, where they identify with their oppressor so much that they join in cahoots with that person.
Mhm.
We see it repeatedly.
Mm, mm, mm. And I it's to the point, Doc, where if they don't come out of their sickness,
Mhm.
they will die with the enemy.
Mhm.
They will die with the enemy. And that's real.
Mhm.
And that's real. And I think that we as a people who understand the time and what must be done, we definitely cannot play with that message. One person asked me one time, "Why do I speak when I'm talking to our people? Why do I do it so passionately? Maybe you should tone it down a little bit. Maybe you should say it nicer." I'm like, say it nicer. We're talking about justice. And justice is not a diplomatic language. I can't tone it down. I can't say it nicely. This is not a nice situation. We're not talking about, hey, let's be friends, let's be buddies. Let's do it right. No, we're talking about justice here. And that's not something that they want you to have.
Mhm.
They don't want you to have it. And so many of our people are even afraid to know what justice looks like. They're afraid to know what justice looks like. And it's left, and I sit there left, Doc, and I'm thinking, I can't save you.
Mhm.
We can't save you.
Mhm.
You're just too far gone. And in reality, that really hurts to know that I gotta leave you. I'm wasting my time even talking to you.
Mhm.
What because I don't even know, when a person asks me about it. So what do we do? The only thing I can say is we got to keep pushing on.
Yeah.
We got to keep pushing on. Can you think of any way to bring that vision to them, to let them understand what reality is?
No. There is no way of enlightening those who are willfully ignorant. It's just what it is. There's so many different factors that go into the socialization and the building of the persona of a person. And you can't always override that. There are some people who to the end of time are going to position themselves to be victimized by white world supremacy and will never do a single thing to prevent being a victim. That's just in them. And they're going to live what amounts to as a very wayward and foolish life all the way to the very end. And now we have to take the position that our sister Harriet Tubman took, who her legendary commitment to the Underground Railroad. She never lost a single person. Well, the reason she never lost a single person is because if you ain't going, you're gonna die right here. And that's the position that some of our people are going to have to be put in. That's going to have to be your decision. Do you want to continue going the path that we're going, or do you want to die right here?
Mm.
And there's, let's be fair now. There's nothing wrong with you deciding that you want to go see the Lord right now. And we have to be prepared to go ahead and send you. Because the truth of the matter is that if your commitment to freeing yourself is so loose and lax and weak, Lord only knows how easy you're gonna tell them about what our plans are if you know them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to be taken up out of here.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of when you look at the battle that is going on between Russia and the Ukraine, it's not a nice process.
No.
It's a messy, brutal process. And we have to have that same commitment. If we're not even talking about necessarily taking over land. We're just talking about building up what amounts to as the colonies that we're in control of in our community, in our area. That's what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't even get that together? Come on now.
Mm-mm-mm. You know, when we understand that the nature
Mhm.
the nature of the enemy that we face, and understand that their objective is our destruction, then you should know that you're fighting for your life. We're on what the military will call death ground. And death ground is a military term. And the in World War II, you see the going to land on Normandy, and the boats are in the water, and the soldiers are within the boats. And when they let the flak down, and the Germans were shooting,
It's
and you
time
heard
to
it
go.
hitting the thing,
Yeah.
then they let the flak down and they hit the boat. That's what's called death ground, because you can't go backwards. You got to move forward. And we are in that position. We can't go backwards in time. We got to move forward. We got to move forward. We got to take the hill. We got to take them down. And there's no second option for what has to be done. There's no second option.
Yeah, the thing for me that continues to just stick in my craw is quite simply, if these individuals have their way, not only will your earthly existence end, but you will spend eternity in hell. They feel as if they have a hell to put you in. That's the graveness that you're dealing with. You're not just dealing with your mortal life. You're dealing with the reality that they want to extinguish you and banish you to hell forever. And if, as a quote unquote predominantly Christian people, if that don't get you riled up, I don't believe that there's anything that will. I've already given up on the idea of the masses of us executing any type of revolutionary action. It's going to be a select few who battle and build without announcing it to the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They got your mind. They got you, and if they got your mind, they got your heart and your soul. You got to reclaim that before we can do anything.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Most definitely. And Maya and Miss Life Lessons, thank you. I definitely will not tone down. And it's definitely an honor, Miss Life Lessons, for you to be with us. And we're over your bedtime. You're back in Europe. But it's definitely a pleasure and an honor to have all of y'all with us
Most certainly.
today. It definitely is. I want to go, because no matter this, I want to share screen. I want to look at this other video, because this enemy is a liar, a thief, a murderer. Nothing good comes from them. And they don't have a problem lying and stealing. It comes natural to them. It's their nature. And it don't matter before lying before the world. Let's look at this. Let's look at this, so we can see and understand they have no shame.
Parts of this story are undisputed. For starters, Army Specialist Justin Perez Gorda was severely injured while serving our country in Afghanistan in January 2011. But parts of this story are very much in question tonight, specifically whether Perez Gorda is paralyzed, as he and his wife publicly claimed for years. I've seen them with my own eyes, and that claim is not true. This was former Army Specialist Justin Presgorda 1 month ago, unloading long pieces of lumber inside the garage of his Dripping Springs home. It was a much different sight than the one captured by cameras right before Christmas 2013.
Very happy or excited to be here today.
Neighbors, state dignitaries, and other wounded veterans greeted Presgorda as he, his wife, and their 2 daughters moved into a home with lowered countertops, wide hallways, and bathrooms specifically built to accommodate a person in a wheelchair. The home, appraised for more than $380,000, was built and paid for by the national nonprofit Homes for Our Troops. This YouTube video was shot by Homes for Our Troops before it awarded the house to Presgorda and his wife. Executive Director Bill Ivey called it a video interview of sorts, later used to raise money to fund the new home.
We're gonna stay in this house, and it's gonna be our home.
The interview contained sensitive and specific information about the extent of Justin's wartime injury, which included a traumatic brain injury, or TBI.
He has permanent losses to both lower extremities. He's paralyzed from the belly button down.
Presgorda made the same claim when KENS 5 spoke with him in April 2012.
I'm paralyzed. I have a TBI.
The medical assertion fell apart almost as soon as the Presgordas rolled out the welcome mat. Within weeks, in January 2015, members of the community began to see something incredible. Justin walking around his property with no wheelchair in sight. When approached about Justin's recovery from paralysis, the couple became angry and withdrawn, according to Dripping Springs residents we spoke with, who asked us not to reveal their names. Their concerns made it to Homes for Our Troops, which repeatedly reached out to Justin last year. He did not respond to their inquiries, according to the nonprofit. So, late last year, an employee for Homes for Our Troops drove from Alabama to Texas to investigate. According to the organization, Justin refused to come out of a back bedroom. The employee talked to Justin's wife for 45 minutes, but left town without any answers. We hear that phrase a lot, permanently paralyzed or paralyzed from the belly button down or the waist down. Is that phrase used too much?
It is.
Dr. Jesse Neely, formerly of Brooke Army Medical Center's Warrior Clinic, is now the medical director of Reeves Rehabilitation Center at University Hospital. He says a traumatic brain injury alone rarely causes paralysis from the waist down. It has to actually be some kind of spinal cord injury.
Correct.
My rehab.
So what were Presgorda's injuries? He qualified for the home after completing the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs grant process for specially adapted housing and passing a background check. The Army confirmed to the I-Team Presgorda was medically retired from the military, but his medical records are sealed. Homes for Our Troops now believes Presgorda actually has an incomplete spinal cord injury. Dr. Neely, who did not treat Presgorda, says patients do not recover from these type of traumatic injuries this quickly. Where are they usually at 1 month after being wheelchair bound?
They would be in outpatient physical therapy, utilizing a walker or other sort of assistive device to walk.
Last month, we made a trip to Dripping Springs and sure enough saw what neighbors have seen for 17 months. Justin Presgorda walking, then carrying wood. Hey, Justin? He stood face to face with us as he threw us off his property. We covered the building of this house back in 2013. Homes for Our Troops Executive Director Bill Ivey released the following statement to the I-Team, quote, "Obviously, there is something out there we missed. Homes for Our Troops continues to assess the situation and is weighing our options." Ivey said taking back the home is on the table, but as a last resort. Justin's bio was recently updated to say he was diagnosed with incomplete paraplegia and not permanent paralysis. Ivey said he made the change after re-examining Justin's medical records. I spoke with Justin's wife, Josephine, for an hour yesterday. She slammed Homes for Our Troops and said the nonprofit has known for years her husband is able to walk.
This is a... All right, Doc. What's your thoughts on that one?
God bless him. He went over there. He went over there to serve his nation. Come back here, he ain't even got a home. They trying to take that man's home away from him. You know, he's been injured at war. You know, he's a true American patriot right there. You know, he just gotta he just gotta get a little more discipline. You know, and stay with the calm. He can't, you know, you can't just go all outside with the calm. You know, but I mean that you know it's one of those things that on the one hand you can laugh at it and say, look at this fool right here. But at the, you know, by and large, I just don't ascribe that just to white folk. That's what I'll say. A part of it reminds me of that opening skit of Eddie Murphy in Trading Places when he was supposed to have no legs, and the officers came and picked him up, and he was just amazed that now he had legs. I think you'll find that in pretty much every race. Somebody that is in many ways trying to get over, trying to you know, milk the system. And a part of me, and this has very little to do with this case right here, but I refuse to give money to those Wounded Warrior projects. I refuse to. I don't, you know, there's no way I would do that. And the reason, and I remember having a very intense conversation with some servicemen in a subway. And I explained it to them. I said, I don't believe that these men who went abroad, regardless if they come back injured or not, you served in a war for this nation. There should not be anything that you're denied. This nation should be taking care of you instead of, you know, you coming back here all broke up, homeless, you know, down there at the VA, getting subpar treatment and what have you. It's in many ways a reflection on this nation's priorities on one hand, but on another hand, you're dealing with a nation of voters who have not been able to prioritize those who have ensured their freedom. Yet come 4th of July, they're going to get very patriotic.
Definitely. And, you know, to me, it just symbolized who the enemy is. Them going out now, if that was a black person that had the gall to do that, you'd have been out that house so quick and so fast, you wouldn't believe it. It wouldn't have been no, let's be investigating. What, the nigga walking? Oh, no. Let's go. And you'd be in jail.
They would have had an investigation, but they would have been filming it the entire time and made a documentary. It would have been on 8 o'clock Monday night on NBC, CBS, and ABC. This is why we can't give them nothing.
Most definitely. They would not have hesitated a moment. But this is what they do. Like I said last week, you know, yeah, black people, we got some black people that steal, but they don't steal on the level of this white man.
I mean, we don't steal people.
Exactly.
You know, they stole people. Millions of people.
They take countries. You know, it's you know, and I wanted to get to it, and I don't think we're going to have enough time, but the serious mental issues that we're talking about, where did you see the video where the black woman was on her knees crawling to King Charles? Did you see that video?
No, I don't need to see nothing like that.
Wow.
That's
and her mental issues. I mean, you see her in the video all happy, you know, and she crawled on her knees to that demon. And he was just so happy to embrace her crawling to embrace her crawling, seeing her that he didn't have the decency to say, come on, get up, don't do that. He was delighted to see her crawling on her knees to him. And it's like we as a people see that. Ain't no way in the world. But she has cognitive dissonance. The stuff that we're teaching, she would never accept. Never accept. But this is the reality of who they are. And we cannot meet them on our knees. Don't we go bowing to them? Don't bow to them. Don't give them that energy that they're so much better than you. Because they're not. They're not. Ms. Life 7 says over 100 EU members of parliament have been caught in corruption scandals, but they decided to stop the investigation because it makes them look bad. You know, that reminds me of when the Mau Mau revolution was going on, and I think it was the prime minister or some British dude went over there to them and told his counterparts, told his white folks over there, he said, look here, when we sin, we have to sin quietly. We have to sin quietly so the world don't know what we're doing. Mm-hmm. He didn't say, hey, look here, this is unjust. We shouldn't be doing this to these people. He said, continue to do it, but do it quietly. This is who they are. This is what they do. Earth Angel said, she'll hurt you for trying to help her. And that's real.
Mm-hmm.
That's real.
Yep.
Peace and blessings, Brother Roy. It's good to see you, big bro. And now we got to understand also that this hatred that they have for us, other communities are picking up with it and saying, let's be about that life too. Let's jump on the bandwagon. Mm-hmm. Our last video that we're going to share for the night, because you got to be vigilant.
You got to fix that sound.
Okay.
Still can't hear it.
Oh, you still can't hear it?
No.
So I don't know how to up it any greater than that. But we'll just talk about it. So they were talking about the Texas shooter, and he was Hispanic white. Now, to me, being Hispanic is not a race. Hispanic is a culture. So that's not a race. It's a culture. But what they're saying is you find this hatred not only in white folks, but you're finding it in the Mexicans. You're finding it in the Asians. And they all have agreement when it comes to Black people is we don't like you. They're taking this white ideology, and in their writings, they're talking about the hatred of Black folks. they're talking about whatever the white man hates, then they grab along to that and then they begin hating as well. And so when you have universal agreement, well, that's what I see it as, universal agreement that they don't like black people, that black people are the problem, then we better have universal agreement on who they are, that they are the enemy, and we got to have universal agreement on the solution to how we deal with that enemy.
But you know, the thing for me is there's some black folk who are in universal agreement as well.
Oh,
And so we have to definitely trace it back to where are these people getting this misinformation that leads them to universal agreement. Now, I'm really only interested in us in getting us as minds right. So these images and these messages that are being digested by these people, including once again some black folk, we really have to be about the business of sanitizing that in educating our own and getting our own on the same path. Because if we're not on the same path in regards to who we are, there's no hope whatsoever that we could ever be on the same consensual path about who they are or how we're going to deal with them. We got to start at home, get our minds together right there.
Definitely. And you know, understanding that everything ends and it starts with us and it ends with us. And so, you know, I had said years ago, and I've been saying it, you know, when we whoop enough ass, everybody gonna get in line and do right. Because it's truly about that time. People see, and you know, as we talked about, I think it was a week or two ago, Doc, where we talked about the incident inside the store when the Arab closed the store and the brother said, "I'm
wouldn't let him out."
Yeah, you know, and he had no problem in shooting his own, who did nothing to him. Nothing to him. He had no problem with blowing them away. All of that must be dealt with. Some will come together from a word and get it together. Most will come together from that ass whooping.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. That is the day and time that we are in. And so if we understand who this enemy is, he is not the man. That is the definite article of what a man should be. That white man is not that. He is not that. This homosexual problem began with them, it ends with them. This having sex with children begins with them and it ends with them. That is not the person or the being to try to pattern your life after, because if you pattern your life after the cracker, he'll make you into himself. He'll make you into himself. Doc, we're at our closing, and we want to go with our closing comments. And my question for you to add in your closing comments, as Miss Life Lesson says, and you say all the time, Dr. Clark said that we have no friends. We have no friends. In this modern age that we're in, because I told you last week or the week before, I'm in a chat that Emil sets up with Africans. And in there, I'm teaching them, you know, what the deal is. But their mind is so locked on to, you know, well, we can't talk like that, because what if they hear me talking like that, and then they come up to another African and they treat that African evilly because I'm talking the way I'm talking. I'm talking like you. I'm talking about justice, and I'm calling them out. I'm being that example. So their fear is, if I say what you say, the next African that they meet is going to be mistreated because of me.
Mm-hmm. You're the cause of it, brother.
How would you address that, Doc?
The African mindset is something that is different. I really don't have anything to say to them, because so many of them are so far gone and so befuddled. They don't even recognize their fellow African as a brother. And so I guess you can say in some ways cowardice runs through their veins, because they have a completely different history. They have the colonialism that is going on with them. And they are in many ways petrified, terrified of Europeans. So I don't know what could be said to them to get them off of that cowardly spot that they seem to be so comfortable in. So I don't know. And I will close with, I love being here, and I look forward to being here. This is in many ways one of the great highlights of my week. And I'm glad that we have people joining us, and hopefully we can take that next step and have people calling in and participating with us live. And with that, I yield. Love you all.
Yes, sir. Love you too, Doc. And I want to address that comment. I had a post. I don't know where it is now, but yet, because yes, they do have sex with animals. They have sex with dogs. They have sex with horses. They have no morality. None. They have none. And it's something that we got to come to grips with. They are not like us. So we shouldn't expect them to be us. We shouldn't expect them to treat us like we should treat one another. They are the enemy. They are the enemies of God. And those of our people who refuse to come out of that mental mindset that looks to love on them, to adore them, to see them as your equal, you will definitely go down with them. And this ain't no game. Don't look to be. I don't look to be their friends. I don't look to be their friend. But you would be surprised to see that they love coming up to me and want to shake my hand and want to act friendly, but I know you are my enemy. I know you are my enemy. You may have a little bit more respect for me, but you still my enemy. So we got to gird up our loins, family, and we got to be ready, because we got to fight on every battlefield. We can't just say, no, I'm going to let this battlefield go. We got to fight on every battlefield. We got to do what we're supposed to do, because it's on our backs now. We can't blame Martin Luther King. We can't blame Jesse Jackson. We can't blame Ralph Abernathy. It's on us today. We got to make it happen. We got to do what we're called to do. Most definitely. We love you, and as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.